Have you ever come up with an amazing YouTube video idea and then all of a sudden as you're putting it all together, you realize, wait a minute, how am I supposed to incorporate a call to action? Am I supposed to ask people to comment, like, and subscribe to my video like everybody else does? Am I supposed to send people to my lead magnet? Or maybe I'm supposed to do all those things. And then when am I supposed to say it? And how am I supposed to say it? And how am I supposed to come across as it not feeling awkward and more natural? Well, if you've ever struggled with any of these problems, and don't worry, you're not alone. In this video, I'm going to share with you some tips and tricks to help make sure you can incorporate a call to action in every single video, not feel awkward about it, and make sure the call to action is aligned with your content perfectly. I've been a full-time YouTuber and internet marketer since 2021, and as of today, I've had more than 11 million long-form video views on my channel. One of the questions I get asked all the time is how to incorporate a call to action seamlessly in a video. So fortunately, there's a formula that I'm going to share with you that's going to help you be able to do this every time. But before we get to that, I want to make sure we talk about how to make sure your video is set up properly, so that way when you do ask for that call to action and when you do present the call to action, that someone's actually going to be more likely to click on the link or subscribe to your channel or whatever it is that you're asking them to do at that time. I also want your commitment that by the end of this video, if I can help you solve this call to action problem, that you're going to incorporate a call to action in every single video. Not only will a call to action serve you and make sure your content is working as hard for you as you're working for it and for your customers and viewers, but you're also going to be serving your viewers at the highest level possible too. Like with any piece of content, the number one thing you have to keep in mind is the reason behind why someone is coming to watch your video in the first place. They're certainly not coming to listen to your call to action, so you need to make sure to focus on and provide value up front first, and to answer their questions or solve their problem before you ask them to do something for you. By doing it in this order, you're going to be able to build trust and rapport, and that's going to help ensure that the call to action doesn't fall on deaf ears and just be completely ignored by most of your viewers. That means you should not incorporate a call to action in the first part of your video, and that goes against a lot of common YouTube wisdom that I see out there. But the reason for that really does come down to the fact that you haven't built trust, you haven't built rapport with someone. So why on earth would they do something that you tell them to do if you haven't actually fulfilled on your promise that you've given them in order for them to even watch your video? So imagine a real world scenario. Say you go see a chiropractor because you're having back problems. You go into the chiropractor's office. He says, oh yeah, no problem. I can help take care of you. But first, subscribe to my YouTube channel because I have more helpful tips here. That doesn't make any sense, right? You have not received any value from the chiropractor. Why on earth would you go to a YouTube channel or read a pamphlet or do whatever it is that they tell you if they haven't actually provided you any value first? So by applying this real world situation to YouTube, you can kind of understand how a call to action needs to fall into place and how it can all line up inside of a video. Now, I know what you might be thinking right now. Well, there's more people that watch a YouTube video in the first 30 seconds than there are in the last 30 seconds. So if I include a call to action in the first 30 seconds, more people are going to hear it. And while that is true, how many people are actually going to do something about it if they don't know who you are? You're like a total stranger to them. So if you're having a call to action in the beginning, sure, more people are going to hear it, but I would argue that less people are going to take action on that, especially if you don't include a call to action at the end of the video, because the people that would actually need your call to action, by the time you reach the end of the video, they've probably already forgotten about it. So it really is important to focus on the viewer first and make sure your calls to action fall in the correct place inside the video, but definitely not in the first 30 seconds. The next thing we want to do is make sure that before you start creating a video, you have the call to action in mind. So whether that's subscribe to your channel or even join an online community, make sure you have that in mind before you start crafting your outline. By doing that, you can make sure everything is going to flow properly. And you're also going to make sure you're not going to change the call to action or be tempted to include multiple calls to action in a video, which is also a bad thing. So make sure you have a clear goal for your video. And also when you're putting together a content plan, which is kind of a topic that we're not really going to cover in this video, but we'll probably cover it in a future video. But when you're planning your content, you want to make sure you're having different videos cycle through your channel with different calls to action in mind, whether that's to have subscribers get added to your channel so you can grow your distribution and your visibility for your channel, or to have calls to action like download your lead magnet to grow your mailing list or to get new clients and customers. The third thing is to match the video offer or the call to action with the video content. So for example, if you have a cooking channel and you're talking about cooking the perfect steak, well, then your call to action might be around downloading a recipe that you used for the video that you created. It certainly would make a lot more sense than including a link to sign up for a VPN service. And I mention that because that's something I see pretty much everyone doing nowadays on YouTube, is to sign up for a VPN service, even if the channel is about something totally unrelated, which doesn't make sense. By ensuring the offer aligns with the content, your viewer is going to be more likely to take action And one of the ways I like to think about the call to action is to kind of keep in mind the next logical step for the viewer. So if you're putting together a video that's part of a series, the call to action might simply be to watch the next video in the series because it's going to help lead them down that path to get the result that they're looking for. Or if maybe the next logical step would be to download your lead magnet because it has additional information in it that's helpful to the viewer, then by incorporating that with the content, then it's going to help, again, ensure that that video is serving that person at the highest level possible. You always have to think of the next thing that the person would want because your video should be fulfilling on the promise and the reason why they clicked on the video and watched it in the first place. Now, I know I've kind of been harping about saving the calls to action to the very end up to this point, and while that is totally true, there are some ways that you can bend this a little bit. So if you want to ask someone to maybe subscribe to your channel earlier on in the content, you can do that in a subtle way. Just make sure it's not the main focus of your content. So for example, one of the best ways you can ask someone to subscribe to your channel at the beginning of a video is to have an overlay that shows up on the screen. See what I did there? No matter what though, make sure if you're going to include an overlay to do it after you've provided a substantial amount of value up front first, because if you haven't done that, it's going to go right back to the things that we talked about earlier. And you want to make sure that they're experiencing value to even be able to consider to subscribe to your channel. The fourth thing we need to talk about is a transition statement. So this is what you need in place in order to bridge the gap between your content and the call to action. And honestly, I think a lot of the time when we struggle with a call to action, it isn't necessarily coming up with the action itself or what steps we want the person to take. It's how do we make that transition between the content to the ask seamless. And that's what the transition statement is for. The transition statement doesn't have to be complicated, but it does have to make sense. Otherwise, it's going to be awkward for both you and for the viewer. Your transition statement could be something as simple as, now that you know how to cook the perfect steak, and then that transition statement leads into the action that you want them to take. And again, another way to think about this is what is that next thing that they're going to need help with? And that can help you kind of craft this transition statement. So let's look at a couple of examples here to help make sure that this concept is solid. Now that you know you need a sales funnel, how do you build it? Or since we just made the perfect logo together, now you're probably wondering where you can get business cards. Or once you figure out where your next family vacation should be, how do you find the best deal? Those are all examples of transition statements that lead into the action step. The fifth thing is knowing what to say for your action step. So this, again, can be simple. It doesn't have to be complicated, but it does have to make sense. It does have to be clear, and it does have to be direct. If your goal is to get more subscribers on your channel, you might say something like, subscribe to the channel for more amazing content like this. Or if you want them to download a lead magnet, you could say, go in the video description below to find a link to my lead magnet that's going to help you with X, Y, and Z. And one thing I have to debunk is this idea that people won't actually go into the video description and they won't actually click on a link if you have it in there. And that's simply not true. In fact, me personally, I've been able to drive over $1 million through affiliate revenue sales just by linking to simple products through one of my channels. Just take my word for it. People can and do click on links in the video description. You do have to be explicit and clear in your instructions for what the next step is that they have to take. So if it's clicking on a link in your video description, you actually have to say, check out the video description and click on the link in order for the majority of people to actually follow those instructions. Otherwise, they're just going to be playing this guessing game, and most of the people that would have clicked on the link probably won't. Now that we've covered the core elements of a good call to action, let's talk about a formula that you can use to make sure you're crafting a perfect call to action every single time. When people talk about calls to action, they typically talk about them like they're one thing, when in fact there are three distinct parts. So in order to help you with this, I've developed a formula called the C3 conversion formula. The three parts are closure, connect, and convert. Now, the first part is closure and talking about what it is that we already discussed in the video, so we're kind of wrapping that portion up. The next part is to connect, and that's that bridge statement or that transition statement to connect the content to the call to action. And then the convert element is the call to action itself or the specific action that they need to take. I know examples always help me, so let's look at a couple here. Now that you know why you need a sales funnel, you're probably wondering how to make one. Fortunately, I've created a free guide that can help you build an amazing funnel for your business. All you have to do is click the link in the description to download it. And here's another call to action. Since we just made the perfect logo together, you'll probably want to get new business cards and show it off. If you visit our website by clicking the link in the description, you'll get a special discount code on custom business cards from our trusted partner. See? Pretty simple. The call to action should be smooth and natural and not feel awkward and out of place. But now I do want to caution you though, if you're new to creating YouTube videos and even social media in general, and you haven't been incorporating a call to action, no matter what you do, it's going to feel a little bit awkward in the beginning, and that's totally normal. You just need to make sure you're incorporating calls to actions regularly in your content. The more you do that, the more natural it's going to feel over time, and they will continue to get better and better as you go. Now that you know how to create simple and effective calls to action, you're probably thinking about ways you can create your next viral video, but I want to caution you that can be a huge mistake. Instead of focusing on creating viral content, you should focus on creating another type of content instead that can be way more valuable. Fortunately, I've put together a video that talks about all that next, so be sure to check that out. Otherwise, I want to say thanks for watching this video, and I will see you in the next one.